The police sirens wailed as Marcus watched from his kitchen window, his heart pounding. 20 minutes ago, he'd been demolishing his own pool in his own backyard. Now, Karen from next door stood triumphantly beside 2 patrol cars, pointing at him like he was a criminal. "That's him, officers! The one destroying property!" But what Karen didn't know, what none of them knew, was that buried beneath that concrete and chlorine lay a secret that would turn this suburban nightmare into something far more dangerous. As the officers approached his door, Marcus realized that removing his pool hadn't just triggered a neighbor's fury. It had unearthed a truth that someone had killed to keep. The sledgehammer felt good in Marcus Chen's hands, solid, purposeful. Each swing against the pool's concrete edge sent vibrations up his arms and satisfaction through his soul. 23 years he'd owned this house. 23 years of listening to the Hartmans next door complain about everything from his grass height to his garbage cans. Now Harold was dead, buried 6 months ago, but his widow Karen had somehow managed to amplify her complaints tenfold. "You sure about this, Dad?" His daughter Lily emerged from the back door, carrying 2 bottles of water. At 19, she had her mother's practical nature and his stubborn streak, a combination that usually served her well. Never been more sure of anything. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his work glove. "Pool's been nothing but a money pit since your mom died. Chemical costs, repairs, that leak we can never find. Time to reclaim the yard." The morning sun beat down on the suburban Colorado landscape, turning the concrete worksite into an oven. Marcus had started at dawn, determined to get the bulk of the demolition done before the heat became unbearable. He'd hired a crew for next week to handle the heavy machinery and removal, but today was about personal satisfaction. Today was about swinging a hammer at something that had caused him nothing but headaches. Besides, he continued, landing another, satisfying blow. "When's the last time anyone used this thing? You went off to college, and I'm not exactly hosting pool parties." Lily laughed, uncapping his water bottle. "Remember when I was 8 and convinced I was going to be an Olympic swimmer? Made you time me doing laps every single day that summer. 47 seconds for a 25-meter freestyle, your personal best." Marcus accepted the water gratefully. "Course, that was before we realized you were more interested in the pool's effect on your tan than your stroke technique." "Hey, I was very serious about swimming for like 3 weeks. Their easy banter was interrupted by the sharp rap of knuckles on wood. Both turned toward the fence that separated the Chen property from the Hartmans. Karen's face appeared above the 6-foot privacy barrier, her perfectly styled blonde hair somehow immune to the morning humidity, her expression carved from pure indignation. "Marcus Chen, what exactly do you think you're doing?" Marcus didn't pause in his work. "Morning, Karen. Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Don't you beautiful day me. I can hear that racket from inside my house. It's barely 8 a.m., city ordinance. Allows construction noise starting at 7. I checked." Another swing. Another chunk of concrete cracked loose. Karen's grip on the fence tightened. "This is ridiculous. That pool has been there for over 20 years. You can't just destroy it." "Actually, I can. It's my pool, on my property." Marcus finally stopped and looked up at her. "Is there something specific you need, Karen?" "I need you to stop making all that noise. Some people are trying to enjoy their morning coffee in peace." Lily stepped forward, her voice diplomatic but firm. "Mrs. Hartman, Dad's just doing some home improvement. It's not like he's doing this at midnight." "I wasn't talking to you, young lady." Karen's attention snapped to Lily with laser precision. "And this isn't home improvement. It's home destruction. There are proper procedures for this sort of thing. Permits, environmental assessments. You can't just start swinging a sledgehammer at a pool." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "I pulled the permits 3 weeks ago. They're posted right there on the front window, per city requirements. As for environmental assessments, it's concrete. And tile, Karen, not nuclear waste. Well, I don't care what some piece of paper says. This is affecting my property values, my peace of mind, and my right to quiet enjoyment of my home. Your right to... Marcus set the sledgehammer down, his patience finally fraying. Karen, I'm removing a pool. From my own yard. This isn't exactly the fall of civilization. Don't you take that tone with me. Karen's voice rose to a pitch that made the neighborhood dogs start barking. I've been living in this neighborhood since before you even moved here. I know what's appropriate and what isn't. And this... She gestured wildly at the demolition. Site. This is completely inappropriate. Lily moved closer to her father, sensing the escalation. Mrs. Hartman, maybe we could work out a schedule. Dad's planning to do most of the heavy work during normal hours. I don't want to hear about schedules. Karen's face flushed red. I want this stopped. Immediately. Marcus picked up the sledgehammer again. Well, that's not going to happen. Sorry, Karen. We'll see about that. Karen disappeared from the fence, but her voice carried clearly over the barrier. We'll just see about that, Marcus Chen. Dad, Lily said quietly. Maybe we should... No. Marcus's voice carried a finality that surprised them both. I'm tired of walking on eggshells around that woman. Harold was bad enough, but at least he was reasonable most of the time. Karen's made it her personal mission to make my life miserable since the day Sarah died. He swung the hammer with more force than necessary, and a satisfying crack spiderwebbed across a large section of the pool's shallow end. She complained when I painted the house. She complained when I replaced the fence. She called the city about my grass height twice. She even had the audacity to suggest I was letting the neighborhood go because I didn't power wash my driveway every month like Harold used to. I know, Dad, she's been awful. But maybe, no maybes. Another swing. This is my property, my pool, and my decision. I've followed every rule, dotted every I, crossed every T. Karen Hartman can file all the complaints she wants. They worked in companionable silence for the next hour, Lily helping to clear debris while Marcus continued the systematic destruction of the pool's edge. The work was therapeutic. Each blow struck at more than just concrete. It struck at the loneliness of the past 2 years, at the financial stress of maintaining a house meant for a family, at the crushing weight of memories that had turned a backyard oasis into a daily reminder of loss. Sarah had loved that pool. Summer evenings after dinner, she'd float on her back, eyes closed, completely at peace. Marcus would sit on the edge, feet in the water, and they'd talk about everything and nothing, Lily's college applications, the growing crack in the garage foundation. Whether they should finally take that trip to Ireland they'd been planning for 15 years. Now the pool just sat there, a concrete hole full of stagnant water and broken dreams. The equipment needed replacing, the liner was shot, and the leak they'd never found had gotten worse. Marcus was spending $300 a month just to keep the thing from turning into a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Dad, look. Lily's voice had an odd quality that made Marcus stop mid-swing. She was crouched near the pool's drain, staring at something in the concrete debris. What is it? There's something... She reached into the rubble and pulled out what looked like a piece of plastic sheeting. This was wedged pretty tight against the drain cover. Marcus set down the hammer and moved closer. The plastic was heavy-duty, the kind used for construction or landscaping, but it had been there long enough to become embedded in the concrete around the drain. As Lily carefully peeled it away, Marcus could see there was more underneath. That's weird, he muttered, kneeling beside her. Why would there be plastic around the drain? Maybe whoever installed the pool used it for waterproofing. But even as she said it, Lily's voice carried doubt. The plastic wasn't positioned like a waterproofing measure. It was bunched and twisted, like someone had shoved it there in a hurry. Marcus grabbed a smaller hammer and began chipping away the concrete more carefully around the drain. The plastic continued, forming what looked like a bundle about the size of a football. Dad, maybe we should stop. It's probably just construction debris. Old contractors sometimes took shortcuts, especially back in the 80s. But Marcus's voice carried the same uncertainty as his daughter's. As more concrete chipped away, the shape became clearer. The plastic wasn't random debris. It was wrapped around something solid, something that had been deliberately placed and covered. Dad, I really think we should... The scream from next door cut through the morning air like a knife. Both Marcus and Lily jumped, turning toward the fence where Karen's voice rose in panicked fury. I'm calling the police! Right now! This is destruction of property and I won't stand for it! Karen, it's my property! Marcus called back, but his attention was still focused on the mysterious bundle in the pool drain. I don't care! Something's not right here! I'm calling 911! Marcus and Lily exchanged glances. The timing was bizarre. Karen had been complaining about noise, not about anything actually suspicious. How could she know there was something odd about what they'd just discovered? She can't see the drain. Officer Rodriguez was built like a linebacker and had the patient demeanor of someone who'd dealt with neighborhood disputes for the better part of a decade. His partner, Officer Kim, was younger, sharper around the edges, with eyes that missed. Nothing as they surveyed Marcus's backyard demolition site. Mr. Chen? Rodriguez consulted his notepad. We received a call about possible property destruction and disturbing the peace. Marcus wiped his hands on his jeans, acutely aware of the concrete dust covering his clothes and the sledgehammer still lying beside the partially demolished pool. Officers, I'm doing renovations on my own property. All permits are posted and I'm well within the legal hours for construction noise. That's what I told Mrs. Hartman, Rodriguez said with the weary tone of someone who'd clearly dealt with Karen before. But she seemed to think there might be more to it than that. From the front yard, Karen's voice carried with crystalline clarity. He's destroying evidence. I know what he's doing back there, and it's not just removing a pool. Officer Kim raised an eyebrow. Evidence of what exactly? Marcus felt his pulse quicken. I have no idea what she's talking about. This woman has complained about everything from my grass height to the color I painted my front door. Now she's apparently escalated to calling the police over home improvement. Mind if we take a look at those permits? Rodriguez asked. Of course. Marcus led them toward the house, grateful for the excuse to move away from the pool drain. Through the kitchen window, he could see Lily sitting at the table, the mysterious bundle nowhere in sight. Good girl. The permits were exactly where they should be, properly displayed and clearly legitimate. Officer Kim photographed them while Rodriguez made notes. Everything appears to be in order, Rodriguez said. The complaint mentioned you started work unusually early, but 7 a.m. is within city ordinance. I wanted to get the heavy work done before it got too hot, Marcus explained. I've got a crew coming next week for the major removal, but today was just personal satisfaction, I guess. Officer Kim glanced toward the pool area. Mind if I ask why you're removing it? Pool adds value to most properties. The question was casual, but Marcus caught the subtle shift in tone. My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. The pool's been nothing but a money pit since then, and honestly, it holds too many memories. Time to move on. Both officers' expressions softened slightly. Rodriguez nodded with understanding. Sorry for your loss. That's tough. Dad? Lily appeared in the doorway, and Marcus was relieved to see her hands. Empty. Is everything okay? Just explaining the permits to the officers, honey. This is my daughter, Lily. Ma'am. Officer Kim touched his cap politely. You been helping with the demolition? Just clearing debris mostly. Dad's doing all the heavy lifting. Her voice was steady, but Marcus caught the slight tension around her eyes. From the front yard, Karen's voice rose again. Are you going to arrest him or not? He's destroying my peace of mind. My property values. He's... Mrs. Hartman, Rodriguez called out, his voice carrying the authority of someone at the end of his patience. We've reviewed the permits. Mr. Chen is operating within his rights and within city ordinance. There's nothing illegal happening here. But the noise, the disruption. You don't understand. He's been doing this deliberately to spite me ever since Harold died. Marcus felt his jaw clench. Even in death, Harold was being dragged into Karen's theatrics. Officer Kim stepped closer to Marcus, lowering his voice. Look, I'll be straight with you. Mrs. Hartman has called us 14 times in the past 6 months. Noise complaints, property, line disputes, allegations of harassment. Most of it's been... He gestured vaguely. Well, let's just say you're not the first neighbor she's had issues with. She's made my life hell since my wife died, Marcus said quietly. Sarah used to be able to smooth things over, keep the peace. But Karen seems to think I'm some kind of threat to the neighborhood now. Some people don't handle change well, Rodriguez observed. Death of a spouse, changes in routine, it can make neighbors anxious, especially older ones who've been in the same place for decades. Through the kitchen window, Marcus could see Lily still sitting at the table, but her posture was tense. He needed to get the officers out of here so they could examine whatever they'd found. Officers, I appreciate you responding, but as you can see, everything's legitimate here. I'm just a widower trying to make some positive changes to his property. Understood. Rodriguez closed his notepad. We'll have a word with Mrs. Hartman about filing frivolous complaints. But Mr. Chen, maybe consider giving your neighbors a heads up next time. Sometimes a little communication goes a long way. I'll keep that in mind. But as the officers walked toward the front yard to deal with Karen, Marcus caught Officer Kim glancing back at the pool area with an expression that wasn't quite satisfied. He'd noticed something, the careful way Marcus had steered them away. From the demolition site, perhaps, or the tension that seemed to radiate from both father and daughter despite their reasonable explanations. Mr. Chen? Kim called back. One more thing. You mentioned a crew coming next week for the major removal. You planning to fill this in completely or install something new? The question felt loaded, though Marcus couldn't pinpoint why. Complete removal. I'm thinking of putting in a garden. Maybe a small patio area. Kim nodded slowly. That'll be nice. Fresh start and all. As the officers disappeared around the side of the house, Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. But the feeling was short-lived. Through the fence, he could hear Karen's voice rising again, though now it carried a different quality. Not just indignation, but something that sounded almost like desperation. You don't understand. That pool! There are things you don't know about that pool! Marcus and Lily locked eyes through the kitchen window. What the hell did that mean? The sound of car doors slamming indicated the officers were leaving, but Karen's voice continued, though now it was muffled as if she'd moved inside her house. Marcus waited a full 5 minutes, listening to make sure the coast was clear before heading back inside. Lily was exactly where he'd left her, but now the mysterious bundle sat on the table between them, like an unexploded bomb. Where did you hide it? Marcus asked. Laundry room, behind the detergent. But Dad, I don't think we should open it. We have to. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Karen's reaction was too extreme, too specific. She knows what this is. But what if it's something we don't want to know about? What if it's something that could get us in trouble just for finding it? Marcus studied his daughter's face. At 19, Lily had inherited Sarah's cautious nature, but also his sense of justice. She was scared, but she was also curious. Lily, someone buried this in our pool, in concrete. They went to a lot of trouble to hide it, and they probably assumed it would never be found. Now Karen's calling the police the moment we start to uncover it. He reached for the bundle. That's not coincidence. The plastic wrapping was professional grade, the kind used for waterproofing important documents. Multiple layers, carefully sealed. Marcus used a kitchen knife to cut through the outer layer, taking care not to damage whatever was inside. The first thing that emerged was a manila folder, thick with papers. The second was a small digital camera, old, probably from the early 2000s. The third item made both of them freeze, a cell phone, also old, but with what looked like a damaged screen. "Jesus," Lily whispered. Marcus opened the folder carefully. The papers were in excellent condition, protected by the waterproof wrapping. Bank statements, financial records, what looked like copies of insurance documents, and photographs, lots of them. The first photo made Marcus's blood run cold. It showed Harold Hartman, Karen's deceased husband, in what appeared to be an office setting, handing an envelope to a man Marcus didn't recognize. The time stamp in the corner read 3 years ago. "Dad, look at this." Lily had picked up one of the bank statements. "This account, it's got Harold's name on it, but look at the balance." Marcus leaned over. The account showed deposits of $50,000, $75,000, $125,000, amounts that seemed impossible for a retired insurance adjuster to have legitimately earned. "Keep going," he said, though his voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. The next series of photographs showed Harold meeting with different people in various locations: a parking garage, a restaurant, what looked like a construction site. Always handing over envelopes, always looking nervous. Then Lily found the photographs that changed everything. "Dad, oh my God." The images showed Harold Hartman breaking into houses. Not just any houses, houses that had been damaged by fires, floods, storms, houses where insurance claims would be filed. In one photo, Harold was clearly removing items from a flood-damaged home. In another, he was photographing damage that appeared to have been artificially enhanced. "Insurance fraud," Marcus breathed. Harold was running an insurance fraud operation. But the worst was yet to come. The final set of photographs showed Harold with someone Marcus recognized, Bill Morrison, who'd lived 2 streets over until his sudden death in a car accident 2 years ago. Marcus shoved the evidence bundle into a kitchen drawer just as the doorbell rang. Through the front window, he could see one of the investigators, a tall man with graying temples and the kind of expensive suit that suggested federal authority rather than local police work. "Stay calm," he whispered to Lily, who had gone pale. "We don't know anything yet." But even as he said it, Marcus knew they were past the point of plausible deniability. The evidence hidden in his drawer painted a picture of corruption, fraud, and possibly murder, and Karen's phone call had made it clear that his family was now caught in the crossfire. The doorbell rang again, followed by a firm knock. "Mr. Chen, FBI. We'd like to speak with you about your neighbor, Harold Hartman." FBI. Marcus's stomach dropped. This wasn't about insurance fraud anymore. This was about federal crimes. He opened the door to find 2 agents standing on his porch. The older man flashed a badge identifying him as Special Agent David Torres. His partner was younger, a sharp-eyed woman introduced as Agent Sarah Kim. "Mr. Chen, we're investigating irregularities in insurance claims processed by Harold Hartman over the past several years. We understand he was your neighbor?" "Yes, though we weren't particularly close." Marcus stepped aside to let them in, his mind racing. How much did they already know? Agent Torres glanced around the living room with the practiced eye of someone who noticed everything. "We spoke with Mrs. Hartman briefly, and she mentioned you've been doing construction work today." "Pool removal?" she said. "That's right. My wife passed away 2 years ago, and I'm making some changes to the property." "I'm sorry for your loss," Agent Kim said, and her sympathy seemed genuine. "This must be a difficult time for you." Lily appeared in the doorway, and Marcus introduced her. Both agents noted her presence with the kind of attention that suggested they'd be paying close attention to family dynamics. "Mr. Chen, what we're about to discuss is part of an ongoing federal investigation," Torres said. "Harold Hartman was under surveillance at the time of his death 6 months ago. We have reason to believe he was involved in a sophisticated insurance fraud operation that may have defrauded companies of several $1 million. Marcus tried to look appropriately, surprised. Harold, I mean, he always seemed like such a quiet guy, kept to himself mostly. Quiet people sometimes have the loudest secrets, Agent Kim observed. Did you ever notice anything unusual about the Hartmans? Unexpected wealth, lifestyle changes, unusual visitors? Marcus thought about the photographs hidden 30 feet away. Images of Harold handing envelopes to strangers, breaking into damaged homes, meeting with people in shadowy locations. Not really, he lied. Harold worked in insurance, but he was retired. Karen does real estate, I think. They seem to live pretty modestly. Agent Torres pulled out a tablet and showed Marcus a photograph. One of Harold meeting with an unknown man in what looked like a parking garage. We found this on Harold's computer. The meeting took place 3 days before his death. Do you recognize the location? Marcus studied the image carefully. The background showed part of a strip mall that looked familiar, but he couldn't place it immediately. It might be the shopping center on Meridian Street, he said finally, but I couldn't be sure. What about this man? Agent Kim showed him another photo, a different angle of the same meeting. Ever seen him around the neighborhood? Marcus looked at the stranger's face, memorizing it. This was someone from the evidence bundle they'd found, but he couldn't let them know that. No, I don't think so. Agent Torres made a note. Mr. Chen, we have reason to believe Harold wasn't working alone. Insurance fraud at this level requires inside knowledge, contacts within the industry, and coordination with multiple parties. We're looking for his associates. The weight of the hidden evidence felt like a physical presence in the room. Marcus was sitting on information that could potentially solve their entire case, but revealing it would raise impossible questions about how he'd obtained it and why he'd hidden it from the police. I wish I could help, Marcus said. But like I said, Harold and I weren't close. If he was involved in something like this, he certainly didn't confide in me about it. What about Mrs. Hartman? Agent Kim asked. How well do you know her? The question felt loaded. Karen and I don't get along particularly well. She's called the police on me multiple times over neighborhood disputes. Just this morning, in fact, over the pool demolition. Both agents exchanged a glance that suggested this information wasn't news to them. We understand there's been some friction, Torres said carefully. Mrs. Hartman mentioned that you've been increasingly hostile since your wife's death. Hostile? Marcus felt anger flare in his chest. I've been trying to grieve and rebuild my life while she's been nitpicking. Every single thing I do. If wanting to be left alone makes me hostile, then I guess I'm guilty. Dad, Lily said quietly, a warning in her voice. Agent Kim leaned forward slightly. Mr. Chen, we're not here to mediate neighborhood disputes, but we need to understand the dynamics at play. Mrs. Hartman seemed concerned about your activities. Today, she specifically mentioned that you might be disturbing things that should be left alone. Marcus's pulse quickened. I have no idea what that means. I'm removing a pool from my own backyard with proper permits and following all city ordinances. Mind if we take a look? Torres asked. At the pool area, I mean. Sometimes seeing the scope of a project helps us understand the context. This was the moment Marcus had been dreading. He couldn't refuse without looking suspicious, but the pool drain where they'd found the evidence was still exposed, still clearly disturbed. Of course, he said, hoping his voice sounded steadier than he felt. They walked through the house toward the back door, passing the kitchen where the evidence bundle lay hidden just feet away from federal agents actively investigating the crimes. It documented. In the backyard, both agents surveyed the demolition site with professional interest. The partially destroyed pool looked exactly like what it was, a home improvement project in progress. Big job? Agent Kim commented. You doing all the work yourself? Just the preliminary demolition. I've got a crew coming next week for the heavy machinery and removal. Agent Torres walked closer to the pool's edge, his attention drawn to the drain area where Marcus and Lily had made their discovery. The concrete around it was clearly more disturbed than the rest of the demolition, chunks removed with precision rather than the broad destruction evident elsewhere. Interesting, Torres murmured. Looks like you had to do some detail work around the drain. Marcus's mouth went dry. The concrete was thicker there, had to chip it away carefully to avoid damaging the drainage system. Smart thinking. But Torres was still studying the area with the kind of attention that suggested he saw more than casual demolition work. Agent Kim had moved to the fence line, examining the sight lines between the Chen and Hartman properties. Mrs. Hartman would have a clear view of your work area from her upstairs windows, she observed. I suppose so. I never really thought about it. She seemed very concerned about what you might find during your demolition, Torres said, turning. Back to Marcus. Any idea why she'd be worried about that? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus could feel both agents watching him carefully, looking for tells, waiting for him to reveal more than he intended. Karen's been concerned about everything I do since my wife died, he said finally. Yesterday she complained that I was getting my mail too early in the morning. I honestly stopped trying to understand her logic months ago. Agent Kim's phone buzzed, and she stepped away to answer it. Marcus caught fragments of her conversation. Financial records. Offshore. Accounts. Need to move faster. When she returned, her expression was grimmer. Mr. Chen, we appreciate your time, but we need to ask you to contact us immediately if you find anything unusual during your renovation work. Anything at all. Documents, personal items, anything that seems out of place. She handed him a business card with both their contact numbers. What kind of things? Marcus asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Harold Hartman was a careful man, Torres said. Careful men often hide things. If he was running a fraud operation from this neighborhood, there might be evidence cached nearby. Safety deposits, backup records, insurance policies. You think he hid something on my property? We think Harold Hartman was paranoid about getting caught, Agent Kim said bluntly. And paranoid people often create insurance policies. Not the kind he sold professionally, but evidence that could protect them if their associates tried. The darkness outside felt oppressive, as if the suburban night itself was holding its breath. Marcus stood at his kitchen window, watching Karen's house for any sign of movement, while Lily spread the evidence across their dining room table like pieces of a deadly puzzle. Dad, look at this. Lily held up a bank statement dated just 3 weeks before Harold's death. He moved $300,000 into an account in the Cayman Islands. $300,000. Marcus tore his attention away from the window. The evidence they'd found was more damning than he'd initially realized. Beyond the photographs of Harold's criminal activities, there were detailed financial records showing a sophisticated money laundering operation that had been moving millions through fake insurance claims. And look at this list, Lily pointed to a handwritten document in Harold's careful script. These are all houses in the area that suffered natural disasters in the past 3 years. The Morrison house is on here, listed as foundation flood damage, $180,000 claim. Marcus remembered the Morrison house flooding 2 summers ago after what everyone had assumed was a burst pipe, but according to Harold's notes, the flooding had been deliberate, designed to support an inflated insurance claim. There are 27 houses on this list, Lily continued. All in our neighborhood, all with massive insurance payouts. The scope of the operation was staggering. Harold hadn't just been running insurance fraud. He'd been systematically damaging homes throughout their community to generate fraudulent claims. Jesus, Marcus whispered. Half our neighbors were probably victims and never even knew it. The old cell phone they'd found was still functional, and Marcus had been scrolling through the text message history between Harold and KC, Karen Crenshaw. The messages painted a picture of an operation that had spiraled far beyond their original intentions. Harold. The Hendricks house is perfect. Older wiring, isolated lot. Casey. I don't like this. It's too close to home. Harold. Exactly. Who's going to suspect their neighbor's insurance adjuster? Casey. And if they figure it out? Harold. They won't. And if they do, we handle it like we handled the Morrison problem. Marcus felt sick reading the casual way they discussed destroying people's homes and lives. But it was the final exchange that made his blood run cold. Casey. The FBI called me today. They're asking questions about your claim processing. Harold. What did you tell them? Casey. Nothing. But Harold. I can't keep lying. Bill's death is eating me alive. Harold. Bill's death was an accident. A regrettable accident. Casey. You cut his brake. Lines? Harold. I cut one brake line. He was supposed to slide into a ditch, maybe break an arm. I never intended for him to go off that bridge. Casey. Intent doesn't matter to a murder charge. Harold. There won't be any murder charges if you keep your mouth shut. The timestamp showed that exchange had taken place just 2 days before Harold's own death. Dad. What if Harold didn't die of a heart attack? Lily asked quietly. What if Karen killed him to keep him quiet? Marcus had been wondering the same thing. It's possible. She was clearly terrified about Bill's death coming. Too light, a sound outside made them both freeze. The soft closing of a car door. Marcus moved to the window and saw a dark SUV parked across the street. 2 figures sat in the front seats, but he couldn't make out their faces in the darkness. Are those the FBI agents? Lily whispered. Wrong car. The agents drove a sedan. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Lily, go upstairs. Lock yourself in your room. Dad, I'm not leaving you. Go. Now. His voice carried an authority that brooked no argument. If something happens, call 911 immediately. Lily gathered up the most important documents and disappeared upstairs. Marcus quickly shoved the remaining evidence back into the kitchen drawer, his mind racing through possibilities. If those weren't FBI agents in the SUV, then who were they? Associates of Harold's? People Karen had called for help? His phone buzzed, with a text message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Come outside. Alone. Marcus stared at the message, his heart pounding. Every instinct told him not to go outside, not to leave the relative safety of his house. But if these people were willing to sit outside his home and make demands, they weren't going to simply leave if he ignored them. He grabbed a kitchen knife and slipped it into his back pocket, then walked slowly toward the front door. The night air was cool against his skin as he stepped onto his porch. The SUV's engine was still running, and he could see the silhouettes of at least 2 people inside. As he watched, the passenger door opened and a woman stepped out. It wasn't Karen. The woman was younger, maybe 40, with short dark hair and the kind of confident posture that suggested she was used to being in control. She approached Marcus's porch with measured steps, her hands visible but her expression unreadable in the darkness. Mr. Chen, she said, her voice carrying a slight accent he couldn't place. My name is Elena Rodriguez. I think we have a mutual problem. I don't know what you're talking about. Harold Hartman, Karen Hartman, and the evidence you found in your pool today. Elena stopped at the bottom of his porch steps. May I come inside? This conversation requires privacy. Marcus's hand moved instinctively toward the knife in his pocket. I think I'll pass on inviting strangers into my house, thanks. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Mr. Chen, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because we're both in danger from the same people. What people? The people Karen Hartman is going to call when she realizes she can't handle this situation alone. Elena glanced toward Karen's house, where lights were on in multiple windows. Harold wasn't just running insurance fraud, Mr. Chen. He was laundering money for some very dangerous individuals. People who don't forgive mistakes. And you are? Someone who was also caught up in Harold's operation. Someone who's been trying to get out ever since Bill Morrison died. The mention of Bill's name got Marcus's attention. You knew Bill? Bill Morrison was my brother-in-law. Elena's voice carried pain and anger in equal measure. He figured out what Harold was doing and tried to stop it. Harold killed him for it. Marcus felt the world shift slightly. Your brother-in-law? Bill was married to my sister before she died of cancer 3 years ago. After Sarah passed, Bill stayed close to our family. He was a good man, Mr. Chen. He didn't deserve to die because he tried to do the right thing. The pieces were starting to fit together. Bill Morrison had discovered the insurance fraud operation and tried to expose it. Harold had killed him too, keep him quiet. And now Elena was here, looking for the same evidence Marcus had found. What do you want from me? Marcus asked. I want justice for my brother-in-law, and I want to make sure Harold's associates don't kill anyone else to protect their secrets. Elena took a step closer. Harold kept meticulous records, Mr. Chen. Evidence of everyone involved, everyone who profited from the fraud. If that evidence reaches the right people, we can put the entire organization in prison. And if it reaches the wrong people, then everyone who knows about it dies, starting with you and your daughter. The blunt statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. The people Harold was working with aren't small-time criminals, Mr. Chen. They're part of a larger organization that uses insurance fraud to clean money from drug trafficking, human smuggling, weapons dealing. Millions of dollars are at stake. A movement in the SUV caught Marcus's attention. The driver was on a phone call, gesturing animatedly. Elena followed his gaze and nodded grimly. My partner is monitoring police frequencies. If Karen calls in reinforcements, we need to be ready. To move quickly. Move where? Somewhere safe, with people who can protect us while we turn Harold's evidence over to the right authorities. Elena reached into her jacket and pulled out what looked like a federal badge. I'm DEA, Mr. Chen. I've been undercover for 8 months, trying to trace the money laundering operation back to its source. Marcus stared at the badge, his mind reeling. You're a federal agent? Deep cover. So deep that my own agency doesn't know where I am right now. Harold's operation was bigger than anyone realized, and it goes all the way up to people with enough power to make federal investigations disappear. Then why should I trust you? Elena holstered her badge and looked directly into his eyes. Because 3 hours ago someone tried to break into my hotel room. Because Karen Hartman has made 5 phone calls in the past hour to numbers traced to known criminals. And because if you don't help me, your daughter is going to end up like Bill Morrison. The front door of Karen's house opened, and Karen herself appeared on her porch, looking directly toward Marcus's house. Even at a distance, he could see the tension in her posture. She's made her decision, Elena said quietly. She's choosing self-preservation over everything else. What does that mean? It means she's going to give them your name and tell them you have Harold's evidence. It means they'll be coming. The sound of splintering wood from the back door told Marcus they were out of time. Elena moved through his house with the fluid precision of someone who'd done this before, her weapon drawn but held low as she navigated toward the kitchen. Lily! Marcus called upstairs. Stay in your room, lock the door. Already done, came his daughter's muffled reply, followed by what sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor. Elena reached the kitchen drawer and began stuffing Harold's evidence into a waterproof bag she'd produced from her jacket. How many ways out of this house? Front door, back door, garage. Marcus's voice was tight with fear. Sliding door from the living room to the patio. They've got the back covered, probably the garage too. Elena sealed the evidence bag and slung it across her shoulder. Front door or patio? A shadow moved past the living room sliding door, answering her question. Basement? Elena asked. No outside access. Then we go up. Elena was already moving toward the stairs. Is there roof access from the second floor? My bedroom window opens onto the garage roof. They climbed the stairs as quietly as possible, but the old house creaked with every step. From below came the sound of the back door finally giving way, followed by heavy footsteps moving through Marcus's kitchen. At the top of the stairs, Marcus could hear Lily's rapid breathing from behind her bedroom door. Elena gestured for him to stay back, then positioned herself where she could see both the stairway and the hallway. "Lily," Marcus whispered, "we're coming in." The sound of furniture scraping across the floor was followed by the soft click of the lock disengaging. Lily opened her door just enough to let them slip inside, then immediately began barricading it again. "Dad, what's happening?" "People want the evidence we found," Marcus said simply. "Elena's going to help us get out of here." Elena was already at the bedroom window, examining the drop to the garage roof. "It's doable, but we'll be exposed for about 30 seconds, crossing to the neighbor's yard." "The neighbor's yard belongs to Karen," Marcus pointed out. "Not behind us. The Kowalskis live on the other side. Older couple, lots of trees for cover." Elena tested the window lock. "Any chance they're home?" "Stan works nights at the hospital. Margaret's probably asleep." From downstairs came the sound of systematic searching, drawers being pulled out, furniture moved, floorboards tested. Professional. "Work. They're looking for hiding places," Elena whispered. "They know Harold kept detailed records, and they know he was paranoid about getting caught." A voice from below made them all freeze. "Chen, we know you're up there. We just want to talk." The accent was faintly Eastern European, and the tone suggested that talking wasn't actually on the agenda. Elena pulled out her phone and sent a rapid text to someone. "Backup's 20 minutes out," she whispered. "We need to buy time or get to a safe location." "What backup?" Marcus asked. "People who've been watching this operation from the outside, waiting for enough evidence to move." Elena checked her weapon. "Harold's records are the smoking gun they've been looking for." Another voice from downstairs, this one speaking in what sounded like Russian. Elena's expression darkened as she listened. "What are they saying?" Lily asked. "They're discussing whether to burn the house down with us in it," Elena said matter-of-factly. "Apparently, they've done it before when evidence couldn't be retrieved quietly." Marcus felt sick. Jesus Christ. The footsteps on the stairs were slow, deliberate, designed to build psychological pressure. Elena positioned herself beside the door, gun raised. "Mr. Chen," the voice called from the hallway. "We know Agent Rodriguez is with you. We know she's been gathering intelligence on our operation. This can end very simply. Give us Harold's records, and everyone walks away." Elena shook her head slightly, indicating they shouldn't respond. "We also know you have a daughter up there," the voice continued. 19 years old, college student. It would be a shame if her life was cut short because her father made poor choices. Marcus felt rage building in his chest, but Elena's hand on his arm kept him quiet. "Harold Hartman was a greedy fool," the voice said, closer now, probably right outside the bedroom door. "He thought he could blackmail us, thought his little insurance policy would protect him. We showed him how wrong he was." Elena's eyes widened slightly. "They'd just confessed to Harold's murder. The heart attack was, what do you call it? Staged. Harold was very much alive when we injected him with potassium chloride. Died quickly, though. We're not cruel." The casual way the man discussed murder made Marcus's skin crawl, but Elena was already moving, positioning herself for what came next. "Agent Rodriguez," the voice called, "we know you're DEA. We know you've been working this case for 8 months. We also know your real name is Elena Vasquez. You have 2 children in protective custody in Phoenix, and your mother lives in a nursing home in Tucson." Elena's face went pale. They weren't just threatening her, they were threatening her family. "So here's what's going to happen," the voice continued. You're going to open this door, hand over Harold's evidence, and walk away. In exchange, your family stays safe, and the Chen family gets to continue their quiet suburban life. And if we refuse, Marcus found himself asking, then this house becomes another tragic home fire. Electrical problem, probably. These old houses are fire traps. Very sad when entire families are lost to such accidents. Elena was typing rapidly on her phone, but her expression suggested the responses weren't encouraging. "Backup's delayed," she whispered. "Local police are being redirected to a gas leak on the other side of town." "They control the police response?" Lily asked in horror. "They control enough people to buy time when they need it," Elena said grimly. New sound from outside made them all look toward the window, the low rumble of a motorcycle approaching. Elena peered through the blinds and swore softly. "More of them?" Marcus asked. But Elena's expression was puzzled rather than alarmed. "I don't think so." The motorcycle's engine cut off somewhere in front of the house, followed by the sound of rapid footsteps on the front porch. Then, incredibly, Marcus heard his doorbell ring. "What the hell?" the voice in the hallway muttered. Heavy footsteps moved away from their door, heading back toward the stairs. Elena immediately went to work on the bedroom window, forcing it open, as quietly as possible. "Who rings a doorbell during a home invasion?" Lily whispered. Before anyone could answer, a voice from the front porch carried clearly through the house. "Police! Open up! We have reports of a break-in at this address." "That's not police," Elena said with certainty. "Wrong protocol, wrong timing." But whoever was at the front door was causing confusion below. Marcus could hear rapid conversation in what sounded like multiple languages, followed by the sound of someone moving toward the front of the house. Elena had the window fully open now. "This is our chance. Garage roof, then run for the trees behind the Kowalski house." "What about whoever's at the front door?" Marcus asked. "Could be genuine police, could be more of them, could be someone else entirely." Elena was already climbing through the window. "Right now, our best option is to not be here when they figure it out." Marcus helped Lily through the window onto the garage roof, then followed her out. The night air was cold against his skin, and the shingles were slippery with dew. Elena moved across the roof with practiced stealth, but even so, their footsteps seemed impossibly loud. They'd made it halfway to the edge when the shooting started. The gunfire came from inside the house, rapid professional bursts that suggested a firefight between two armed groups. Marcus pulled Lily down against the roof as bullets shattered his bedroom window above them. "Who's shooting at who?" Lily asked, her voice tight with terror. "Does it matter?" Elena replied. "We need to move." They crawled the remaining distance to the roof's edge, then dropped one by one into the Kowalskis' backyard. The trees provided immediate cover, but the gunfire from Marcus's house was getting more intense. Through the kitchen window of his own home, Marcus could see muzzle flashes and moving shadows. At least 6 people were